Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to today's upload. This is an upload that I honestly did not plan on doing. It literally fell into my lap because of Saturday Nightmares Live from New York, our live stream. And, well, actually quite a bit of experiences fell into my lap because of that live stream. And so we're going to have some experiences that are just absolutely mind-blowing. One in Texas that really just surprised me. Before we get into this experience, though, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's upload, shall we? Okay, so Saturday Nightmares Live from New York is our live stream. It was a 3-hour live stream, and we had a lot of fun. But there were at least 6 different people because of that live stream that reached out to me and wanted to share some of their experiences. One, Darren K., he had sent me an email about a month ago, and I did an experience. I talked about an experience that happened out in Texas, and right in his location, 4 miles from where he lives. He actually knows the people that the experience happened to and has some insight on that. So he's going to be sharing that with us here in the near future. Now, at the end of the live stream, I kind of ran out of experiences, and I said, nope, I didn't. I've got a whole slew of subscriber experiences right here. And I picked up the stack and I started to go through them. And one of them that I did was in regards to the 2 Mount Shasta experiences that I had done. One with the Marines going up into Mount Shasta, and another one with a young man who had went hiking and was abducted, possibly by the Lemurians, and he had witnessed a lot of strange stuff. He was probably 3 or 4 levels underground. He's not really sure how many levels, but he was underground. And at the end of everything, as he's trying to figure out what is going on and leave this place, which they were letting him leave, they were escorting him out, but for some reason they were allowing him to witness certain things. And one was they had these 2 large humanoids, not hairy humanoids, not Bigfoot, probably what we could refer to as giants, mountain giants, Nephilim. And how they had them, they were so huge that they were larger than him as they were sitting. And for somehow they had them chained with their hands between their legs as they were sitting there. And then as he kept passing more and more of these holding cells, there was a large kind of angelic creature. And I feel kind of strange saying angelic creature because I don't know if it was an angel or if it was something completely different. But the way that these alien-like creatures had this angelic humanoid-like creature portrayed or displayed was in a kind of crucifix display. They had its arms, like there was some sort of not a chain, but some sort of suspension material on each arm going to the walls, and then so it's suspended in the air by its arms, and then there's something holding its legs, and it's almost like it's stretched out in a crucifix pattern or shape. And he clearly saw wings on the back of this creature. And it was much larger than any kind of description given by Mothman, this and that. It was pretty close in his perception to being somewhere like 8.5 feet in height, from foot to head, and displayed in a crucifix pattern or whatever you want to call it. Which, to me, I almost think that these alien-like creatures did that because I really believe that these certain alien races are demonic. I don't think that they may be from outer space or interdimensional, but I think that, how do we know where everything comes from? You know, we are talking monkeys, for God's sakes. We learn things every day, and we have amazing ideas and theories and everything, but we don't know. We barely scratch like the surface of anything. And so I think that these reptilian or Lemurian, Greys, whatever, are demonic or are demons. And if this was an angel that they had captured somehow, a demon, in my eyes, would almost do something like that to mock God. Like, look what we did to one of your, sacred creations. We're going to display him like your son. And to me, that is demonic. So if these things, these creatures, these alien-like creatures under Shasta are doing that, then yeah, I think they are demons. But this one experience that I shared, talked about, he's a young man, and this was in the live stream. This was in Saturday Nightmares. And actually, you know what? I will narrate the experience for you before we get into the experience that fell into my lap. All right, so this is not the experience that fell into my lap that I'm going to share. This and the two other experiences, the Kirk one and the young man whose name was Kirk, and his sister's friend reached out to me, and then he did. And then the Marines going to battle with a Nephilim on Mount Shasta. So the gentleman that I'm going to share his experience in a second heard this, and then after thinking about all three of these experiences, said, it's time for me to share my experience. So this is the one that pushed the gentleman to share. Jeff, my name is CJ. I've lived in Mount Shasta 9 years now. I'm 4 minutes and 19 seconds into your video on YouTube with 85,000 views. Impressive 6 days ago. I'm not sure why you popped into my algorithm, but my reason I stopped the video and emailed you is I call him the Watcher, and he is a Nephilim, and I know exactly where he resides. He is terrifying, and I couldn't see him in the daytime, but I could feel him. Most definitely could see him at night because he would follow me just outside of the tree line, and I was on the pavement walking 1 step to my 4. I did this every day for the whole summer that I was there. On the 3rd day, I got so sick of being scared of him, I yelled, "If you're going to do something, do it now." Never once does he. Always in the same exact spot for 350 yards, he'd walk beside me at night, just staring down at me with his large orange eyes. On the full moon, I could make out his long beard. It was a red beard and long hair. He never did anything but watch. Why do I call him the Watcher? Now, I found out of interest in weird, scary energy in daytime, so I went back at night to the same area, and hence what I just told you happened. I don't have the ability to walk anymore, but I know the exact elevation. I think he knew somehow that I meant a great deal to our Creator, and that interested him in why he would show himself. I know his sins against God after God strictly told them not to, what God made place for the fallen ones who took the 3rd of the cerebellum with him. Soon as it looks, John wrote in the final book prophesizing what's going on in the current time. So that's how I know what is written will happen soon. God bless you, Jeff. I wish you well. 85,000 views in 6 days is pretty good, but I felt it was very interesting. Now I will finish listening to the Marines. Be well, my friend. So I am going to reach out to him. Now, obviously he's older, or he had some sort of accident to where he cannot walk anymore. But I wish there was, 9 years ago. He's lived there for 9 years now. So I am going to reach out and find out, because I'm very interested in what he's got going on. Now, last night at the end of the live is when I shared this. And for some reason, this morning I woke up and I had 4 or 5 different emails from different subs. And when I went to bed and I woke up and there was a couple more. And I'm looking through them first thing, and I see Mount Shasta experience pushes me to share mine. Please reach out whenever you can. So I did, and I spoke with a gentleman. We'll refer to him as Steve. His experience has changed him for his lifetime. He is so untrusting of anything and anyone now. Year was 2010, and he was part of a search and rescue team. He had been doing this search and rescue for a couple of years. He was 21 at the time, and he had his CPR requirements and all of the stuff he wanted to. This was his kind of dream job, was to work in the mountains and help rescue and save people, just because he loved being outside when he was younger and felt like he could make a contribution as well as a living doing what he loved. All the more power to him. And unfortunately, because of this experience, he refuses to step foot into the woods. Even if the woods are like on a walking trail, and there's just a section of woods and then a road, because he, on Mount Shasta, saw what really goes on. So 2010, he's out there, and a young woman had disappeared. They had gotten the notification like 48 hours after she had gone missing. They're looking at footage of, some old camera feeds. There was very limited camera feed back then to what there is now 14 years later, but there was still some camera footage, trying to figure out what and where she might have went on the mountain. And there's a lot of accessible and not so accessible trails in Mount Shasta. And if you have hiked that area for quite some time, you will be able to find the not so accessible trails. And they are that way for a reason, because they are dangerous. They decide that they're going to check some of these old trails, and there's some like fire roads that lead into these trails that you would need an older map from possibly like the 80s and maybe early 90s to find these trails that are no longer in existence, because the mouth or front part of the trail has been overgrown purposely. So they park and they get out of their vehicle, they get their backpacks on, and it's a very beautiful day. Warm, foggy, a little foggy, but just absolute gorgeous hiking weather. Not too hot, not too cold. And they start to make their trek through this little patch of new growth that covers the trailhead. And as they are walking in, he kind of gets a weird feeling like, maybe I shouldn't be here. And he says it to his companion that is with him, another search and rescue. But this guy has been doing he's been doing it for about 5 more years longer than Steve has. So he kind of says to him, hey, I've got this feeling like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't be here. And he explains it to him like, if you go into a area where you're not supposed to be and you're afraid that you're going to get caught or something, but we are supposed to be here. Why am I feeling like this? Do you feel like this? And the gentleman that he's with kind of brushes it off, but makes the comment with, yeah, every once in a while on this mountain, I do feel like that. And I think it's because it's a sacred mountain. Now, I didn't know this until today, but I've always believed that there is a deep underground military base there. Obviously, I think that if there is one, our government helped or took advantage of Talos, the Lemurian city that is there already. And I think that's obviously been going on for quite some time. But I didn't know that that Mount Shasta is a volcano, not active, but its last eruption was something like 3,000 years ago. And so that's very interesting to me, because whoever created this deep underground base or military base or city obviously has some very skillful, to work around a caldera of magma and such. But anyway, so they're walking on this trail and they finally get to the head of the trailhead, and they're now on a trail that is overgrown but not too bad. They can see the remnants of the trail that was there prior. They keep pushing on. They are yelling for this woman's name. Now, I said to him, was there a reason why you continued on this trail if it was overgrown? I mean, wouldn't you be able to tell if someone had been on this trail? And he said, that's why we were there. One, because we were told to go to different not accessible trails and not use trails anymore. But if there was any kind of sign that something or someone had been there, that we were to proceed. And there had been right at the very beginning. And then there was on the overgrown trail, they could tell that something or someone had walked through there maybe a day or two prior to them being there. So they do think they are on the right spot for this woman. And they keep going, yelling her name, to when all of a sudden they hear this very loud kind of like a whirl noise. He said the only way he could explain it would be if a metallic door that had compression and suction opened, but it was so loud that they both felt this kind of pressure in their bodies, in their ears. Just once this sound kind of erupts, they felt it and they stopped immediately because they weren't sure what it was. He had never heard anything like that. He looks at his coworker and he's shaking his head, looking around, not knowing what's going on. So evidently and obviously he knows that, shit, this guy's been doing this for 5 more years than I have. So for a total of 7 years, and he's never heard anything like that. I'm not even going to ask, have you heard something like this? Did you hear this? And they don't really stop walking, but they slow it down. And Steve kind of proceeds to pick up the pace a little bit out of kind of maybe fear or whatever. He said, I don't know why, but I did pick up my pace. And you'd think if it was because of fear, I would have turned around and picked up my pace going the other way. But I have no idea. I was just almost drawn to keep going forward. And at that point, his coworker kind of puts his arm over his chest to stop him. And he stops and he's kind of what gives? Why'd you stop me? And he's kind of just says, looks at him and just shh, really quiet, nonchalant. And he kind of points really nonchalantly, but he still points and he says, follow my finger, look to where my finger is. And he said, don't make it obvious. And he's he looks and he's looking and he can't see anything. And he goes, what are you talking about? What am I supposed to see? What, trees? And he said, beyond my finger, keep looking. But don't stop when you see it. Just keep scanning and panning after you saw it and then pan back to it, but don't stop. And so he keeps looking and he keeps looking, and he literally, right as his eyes caught what he was supposed to look, his head stops. And then he pans a little more. And then he goes back, and he said, what we saw was the ugliest creature, the scariest thing I had ever seen in my life. He said it was standing at the haunches of its shoulders, or whatever it was, 4.5 to 5 feet in height. He said, I'm 6'1", and this thing would have came to my nipples, to where its shoulders were. This thing was enormous. It had this large wolf's head. It looked just like a gray and black, or black and gray wolf, just 10 times bigger. He said its head was so huge. Its body was just enormous. There was nothing that, clearly this is not a wolf, but it really does look like one, and it is absolutely just terrifyingly huge. As he keeps panning and he stops to look ahead, and he says to his coworker, what do we do? And his coworker says, I don't know. I have no idea what that is, but that is, if that is a wolf, that is the biggest wolf I had ever seen. And he said, how can a wolf be that big? And doesn't it look like its eyes are glowing in the daytime? And he watches his coworker turn his head and kind of pan again. And he said, I didn't notice its eyes, I just noticed its body. He had caught the shape of it. It was parallel walking with them in the woods, about 150 feet from them. And these woods are deep. But he had seen this black, long body walking. And he said the body itself, from where its neck would be to where its butt would be, was pretty close to being 7 feet long. Like, this thing was just enormous. He said it's from the back of its head to the tip of its snout. Its head must have been 2 feet. It was just huge. If I had to guess, a good 600 to 700 pounds. This was just nothing but an enormous wolf. It hadn't done anything but stand quadruped, walk quadruped, but now they have these golden, glowing eyes on this foggy yet sunny day. The fog has not lifted off the ground yet, so it's still, And he said the color of its eyes were just this beautiful golden yellow, this dark golden yellow. They decide to walk forward because they don't want to alarm the creature that they have seen it. They're still panning, and his coworker yells out the woman's name as they just start to walk again. Nerves are like super high, and his coworker yells this woman's name, and he jumps about a mile into the air. Not really, but, and says, what the hell, dude? And just like that, just loud like that. And his coworker says, we got to act like we didn't see it. Let's just keep doing what we were doing. We're here to look for her. I'm not going to mess with that thing. If it does come closer to us, we're going to have to, figure something out. Hit it with some sticks, throw some rocks at it. They were not armed. They had no firearm with them. So they keep walking, and this is not a straight trail. They're going up in elevation. No firearm. They do have, pocket knives, whatever, bear spray. But that's in their packs. And their, hiking sticks. At this point, both guys are now kind of corner of their eye watching this thing. And it has now started to parallel walk with them, still off in the distance. He said, I'm not sure if it knew we were aware of it yet, because it still was acting like, I'm going to keep my distance from these guys and watch what they're doing. But once it did become aware of them, that's when shit hit the fan. They are going up the hill or up into the mountains. The elevation is getting higher. They're obviously feeling it in their bodies and their ears and everything. And they start to kind of talk to each other about this huge wolf-like creature that's, parallel walking with them. And, he says, what the hell? Is it still walking with us? Yup, still walking with us. What was that noise? What do you think that noise was? They got back onto the subject of the noise, because they really didn't talk about that, because a minute, 2 minutes later, they had seen this thing. And they're just having conversation with each other. How far should we go? When do we turn around? Obviously, we can't run, because we're going to look like prey for this thing. And that thing, judging from the size of it, could easily pick both of us off in a heartbeat like that. They keep walking, and as they get to this kind of section that the trail kind of forks like this, but they can see that, it goes up into kind of a diamond. For some reason, the trail kind of... And they have this old map. They're looking at it, and they can see that diamond shape. And he said, which side do we take? Well, his coworker said, let's take the side that's further away from this creature. Let's get, another 100 feet away from it. So instead of going up this way and that way, we'll go this way, and hopefully it loses interest in us when it doesn't see us. So they start to walk up, and they get to this kind of corner area, and they start to peek up again like that. And they can see where the both, they intersect into one trail again. And he said, that's weird. Why would they? Because they're still trying to have conversation about the search and rescue mission that they're on, but how strange it would be to have a diamond shape in this trail, and to get their mind off of this thing that's walking aside of them, paralleling them. So they get to where the trail pieces together, and they start walking, and instantly he says to his coworker, is it there still? And he kind of watches him like out of the corner of his eye. And his coworker says, I don't see it. I don't see it. What should we do? This is a guy with 7 years of experience to a guy with 2 years of experience. What should we do? That really fucked him up bad, because he doesn't have the answers, and he was relying on his coworker for the answers. That's why they paired them off together. People with less time go with someone who has more experience in this area and doing this job. So they stop, and his coworker, he watches him physically. He's not doing it nonchalantly anymore. he turns his head and pans, not with just his eyes, but he stops and like kind of peeks, looks, and he said, I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. We're not getting any response, from this girl that's missing. Let's go up a little more and we'll watch the trail. We'll see how, if there's any sign of her. We'll call her name out a couple more times. But then, so they get walking, and within a couple of minutes of them walking, that wolf thing is still on their mind. That sound is still on their mind, but they're starting to calm down a little bit because they haven't seen it for a bit. To where the forest erupts in this kind of loud, branches breaking, leaves just getting scattered, like a herd of buffalo are running through these woods towards them. And they stop, and Steve immediately turns around and says, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And he starts to walk back, and his coworker says, I'm with you, let's go. They get back to the intersection, and they take the way they didn't. They take the opposite side, which would put Steve on the inside or outside, whichever way you want to look at it, but that would be the side where this wolf creature is. And they're, walking, and he's now keeping his eye out, any kind of movement, but they can still hear the forest kind of just erupting in, just mass chaos. Like the day that I was up where Tom Mezek disappeared, and I'm sitting on some boulders and I'm sharing experiences with you, recording it up there, and the woods behind me just blow apart. That is exactly what they were hearing, only much more magnified. It's just huge noises. They get to where that intersection then connects to that kind of corner of the V, so they're like right there. And they stop to kind of look behind them because they don't know what that noise is yet. And as they're looking, he sees the wolf creature further off in the woods because he's now, looking. Both of them are looking around. But he sees it. And he said, Jeff, it wasn't quadruped anymore. And it looked so human that I don't know how I even thought that this was, real. This is straight out of a horror movie. So as I turned and I catch, he said, we made eye contact. He said, but that was not the strangest and scariest thing was the creature was now bipedal. And they made eye contact, but he was looking up at its eyes. And it has one giant kind of clawed hand on this tree, kind of like not suspending, but holding its balance, staring at them. And the noise up ahead from the mountain had subsided a little bit, but all of a sudden it bursts into that eruption again. The sound sounds about 2 to 3 miles away. So they've got to figure out what this Dogman is going to do and whatever is behind them. Is it more Dogmen? Are we going to die today? As that erupts, he's looking at this Dogman, and he sees the Dogman turn its head. So it takes its focus off of Steve and his partner and looks towards where this eruption of noise is coming from. And he said, I saw its teeth kind of go up. Its jowls go up and its teeth are now exposed. And it made this growl that he has never heard. It was just this terrifying, but he knew it wasn't towards him because that Dogman is now looking further up the mountain. And he nudges his partner and says, it's aware of whatever is behind us. Should we run yet? So they are now watching this Dogman that's, easily 8.5 to 9 feet in height. Now lose all interest in these two guys. But whatever is coming off this mountain, it has now it's all of its focus is on this. And they can hear whatever this thing is just, really coming in fast. It was a distance away to where now it almost sounds like it's on top of them. And they can hear what they only assumed were trees just getting smashed. And he turns to look at this Dogman again, and it's still focused on that. And it's giving this guttural growl. They can feel it in their chest. And as he turns, he sees what at first he thought was a hallucination. But he looks and there's a bunch of deadfall and trees. This trail has long been overgrown, but it's still, better than just blazing your own path. And he's got this enormous human that is, not double the size of the Dogman, but definitely double the size of Steve and his coworker. Obviously much taller than that. And they look like, holy shit, what is that? And what they see is this thing's now looking at Steve, his coworker, and it's just enormous. And he said it didn't have red hair. It did have this just huge bushy beard. It was just this enormous kind of ball of matted freaking hair, and it had this like blackish brown, dark black or dark brown, black hair, long hair. And it appeared to be wearing some sort of fur or hide on its chest. They couldn't see past its, waist because the trees, but it's huge. Somewhere between 13 feet, 14 feet. And they look at this Dogman and they look back at this thing, and it's staring at both of the guys. It's literally staring down at them. It has not moved. And they watch it look, and it sees the Dogman. And Steve said they both made eye contact. He said, and it was the scariest thing because that Dogman stopped growling immediately. And he could see that its eyes were this just golden glowing color. But this humanoid, whatever, mountain giant, had the most human looking eyes, except they were as big as a dinner plate, just staring at the Dogman. And they watched the Dogman drop to quadruped and start running towards this mountain giant. As it starts to run, his coworker looks like looks at him, gives him a nudge and says, "Run." And they just take off running the way they came. Like their lives depended on it. He said when we just kept running and we could hear growls, we could hear grunts, smashing, trees breaking, just chaos, absolute chaos behind us. You could tell these grunts, or whatever you want to call them, it was not a language, but it was just this guttural sound. And you could hear the Dogman's growls. And then the guttural sound stops, and you heard this kind of horrifying sound of a dog, getting hurt. You step on your dog's tail by accident and it makes that noise. They heard that and they could hear it again. And it sounded like it was moving again now. But it was not. It was stationary. So it was this fight that was ensuing between this Dogman and this mountain giant. And they, at one point, don't hear anything. And they get almost to where the trailhead is. They've got to blaze their own trail back through probably 250 feet of planted trees and shrubs and everything to, make this trail inaccessible anymore. They get out to the trail and they don't hear anything. They don't hear any noises coming down off that mountainside. They don't hear the growls. They don't hear the whines. And they just get into their vehicle and get the hell out of there. They get back to where the search and rescue is being contained, where there's maps, there's, higher ups and everything. And they're both asked, did you go to all your places? This, and that. And Steve looks at his boss and said, "I'm done. I'm not working for you people anymore. I'm just out of here." And his coworker kind of looks at Steve like, "Are you sure?" Because they hadn't done anything. They had done absolutely no kind of search and rescue work except to go into those woods, stop out of terror, and then be driven out of the woods. And, his boss is now demanding, what do you mean you didn't do anything? What the fuck is going on, And Steve's coworker says, well, this just happened to us. And I'm not going into the, back up there with what we saw. And he says, tell me what you saw. Steve is now away from the conversation. And Steve's coworker proceeds to say, whatever that thing is, it's huge. And then there's another thing that's out there that's, twice as big as this Dogman thing. I don't know what you want us to do about that. I've never seen anything or heard anything like that. So their boss says, go get some coffee, unwind, we'll figure this out. They're talking amongst themselves, Steve and his coworker. They're not talking to anybody else about this. They know they're being watched by their boss. And he said it was no longer than an hour, TV show, and no shorter than a half an hour TV show before these two guys come strolling in to, our home base. And they said, they talk to the boss and they take Steve and his coworker aside. They're separated. One is, his coworker's in a different room. Steve's now in this room with this kind of table. And, just a quick throw-up table. It wasn't kind of an office prior to. And he's questioned. But when he's questioned, he said, the weirdest thing about all this is when I was questioned, the person that was questioning me was so difficult to put a human kind of vibe to. He was just a matter of fact. He used threats. Steve is in a same-sex marriage. He was threatened with that. And the gentleman who was threatening him and saying all this and doing all of this and interrogating him and interrogating, his coworker says in a deep southern drawl, you need to forget about all this bullshit that you've seen tonight. You're going to come with us. We're going to figure this all out. We'll come back up here and figure out what's going on. And Steve's like, what do you mean? You, we, what? Just come with us. We'll figure it all out. Bold-faced lie. Now, the only reason why Steve knows anything after that drive, getting into the vehicle with these men and going to a undisclosed location, he believes that their minds got wiped. He has now only started to remember any kind of activity that happened that night and day. Because he has started to go to therapy, and hypnosis has now brought out some of this stuff that this mind wipe had done. And he is convinced that whoever these people were had some sort of part in wiping his and his co-workers' memories from that day. And he thinks that just from what he remembers and what he shared with me earlier, he thinks there's a lot more to it all, that quite possibly that they had gotten answers from these gentlemen that they talked to, and then they got their minds wiped or whatever. But they never did end up locating the missing female they had been looking for. And throughout his time as working as a search and rescue officer up there, there had been numerous strange kind of happenings. He said that in the news a couple of years after all this happened, there was this huge kind of 60-foot hole that mysteriously showed up in the side of Mount Shasta that looked like it was dug by human hands. He said you can find those little holes or those little remnants of whatever all throughout the mountain. And he still to this day anytime he looks towards that area, gets a fright and gets a nervous kind of feeling. And he truly believes that those, I think they're called linear clouds. He really thinks that whatever that is, or however they're formed, that they are formed from the Lemurians, the demons, whatever you want to call them. And he has never been able to go into the woods after all of that. Once everything, the hypnosis started and he started to remember all of this, he is petrified of the woods. He won't go into even 6, 7, 8 feet of woods. Like I said, if there's a sidewalk and then a set of woods and another sidewalk beyond that set of woods, but you can see it, because he's afraid of a portal or a vortex or just whatever. Because after seeing all of that and then having this hypnosis bring things back to him, he truly believes that we are not even capable of understanding what is really going on our planet. And I'd have to agree with him. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we all deserve, and that is because of all of you, and it is appreciated. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.